Okay, hello. Good morning. Today we're going to be talking about the universally substantial cylinder. Um, this is almost ineffable. It's beyond words, but I've managed to put something together so it's not precise. Um, there's a lot more to talk about than what I'm going to do in this 20 minutes. So the cylinder, let's say a tube, a pipe, a bar. I'm going to give some examples. My fingers are cylinders. My fingers are cylinders. My arms are sort of like cylinders. My legs are sort of like cylinders. My arteries are sort of like cylinders. My veins are sort of like cylinders. A tree is sort of like a cylinder. It's a circular. So it's probably safe to assume that without the cylinder, the human being wouldn't know anything about the universe. So when I'm breathing through my nostrils, I'm breathing through my mouth, I'm breathing through cylinders. When I'm looking out, my optic connection, nerve or whatever, is based on cylinders. So considering that cylinders are so apparent in the human body, and apparent with nature, like for example a tree, or with an atom. With an atom there's the proton and the neutron, and then there's the electron. The electron travels in a supposed orbit. This might be inaccurate because I have a new view of the atom, but considering that if in this old model the electron is traveling, and considering the amount of atoms in the universe, it seems that the electron is traveling in a mechanic that could be associated to the cylinder. Now the thing is that when you consider the universe, for example, in the universe there is orbits. There's billions of solar systems with planets orbiting stars and stuff like that. So you consider Earth orbiting the Sun, you consider Mercury orbiting the Sun. It seems that the primary mechanical motion in the universe is the cylinder. Now, having said that, and considering that we would not know anything about the universe without the telescope, which is a cylinder, without the microscope, which is a cylinder, partial cylinder, maybe at some point in the universe, maybe the cylinder was more substantial. And if it was more substantial, what would that make our universe look like? I had a dream throughout my life of a boulder struggling against a smaller boulder, and the bigger boulder would try and crush the smaller boulder. And at the same time, there was this grid that was active, or like lightning. There was activity in this grid, and the grid was sort of like cylinders or pipes. And I heard really angry Buddhist chants and didgeridoo music. So I had that dream ever since I was a little kid, and it stopped around 10 years ago. But it led me to think, let's say the universe was at one point substantially more cylindric or cylindrical. And inside of these cylinders, or this grid, let's say the universe was more flat and wasn't as wide as we see it now. Say spheres were traveling or moving or having motion within these cylinders. If the universe was more substantially cylindrical at an earlier time in the universe, maybe there is no Big Bang. Maybe considering the primary motion in the universe to be an orbit, or to be a sphere traveling in a, not in a cylinder, but traveling in the motion of a cylinder, in an orbit of a cylinder. Maybe, just maybe, the universe was more cylindrically substantial, or that there was more of a substantial cylinder in the universe. Now, considering that our veins, our arteries, atoms, orbits, trees, this super collider in the shape of a cylinder, or other scientific experiments, it is safe to say, and it is evidential even to say, that the cylinder is the primary mechanic or motion in the universe. So if it's the primary mechanic in motion in the universe, then it's reasonable to assume that it is more substantial. Now I'm going to do a little experiment, and I don't know if this makes any sense, but this ball, for example, let's say it's iron, and this is just a flat board. If I was to roll this ball back and forth, if you see the ball, it stands on a point, and it moves back and forth. Like, this is just an example. Let's say it's an iron ball. If I were to do this for, I don't know, 100 years or so, eventually you would see a gouge from the point of contact from the ball on this flat object. You would see a gouge, you would see a wear and tear, you would see a wear and tear. Now the thing is that for the last century that I've been doing this, it's been traveling in a cylinder, moving in a cylinder. The sphere is moving in a cylinder. So let's say at the beginning of the universe, and the universe is more substantially cylindrical. Let's say inside of these cylinders there are all kinds of balls, and all these balls were moving in a motion. Like let's say it's sort of like a tree of life, or a cylindrical artery system or a vein system. The ball would hit the wall of the cylinder, and at that point of contact, it would gouge. So it's what I'm calling cylindrical exhaust as a result of spherical gouging. So right now there's a popular movement in the world called Pastafarianism, or the flying spaghetti monster. And maybe there's some relevance to this, because we would not know anything about the universe without the influence of the cylinder. And the cylinder housing spherical-like objects, like blood cells. Like, they're not spheres, but they travel with a circular form, and they gouge at our walls. Like, this might be part of the reason why we age, is because the blood flow and the neurons and stuff like that, and all the activity is going against the cylinders, and it's wearing down our body. So if at the beginning of the universe there was a more flat artery-like system, or vein-like, or cardiovascular-like system housing within a cylinder spheres, then it's reasonable to assume that considering that the cylinder is the largest mechanic in the universe, that the cylinder used to be more universally substantial. So if the cylinder is more universally substantial, maybe the way that we view the universe, like even when they talk about the Big Bang, they refer to the universe's growth in a cylindrical map, that, like, through time and stuff like that. Like, maybe that's the only way that they could express it. But you consider a microscope, you consider a telescope, you consider binoculars, you consider speakers, you consider wires for a computer. It's probably I think that it's pretty safe to say that we would not be alive without the influence of the cylinder. That our awareness of the universe would not be even existing without the influence of the cylinder. So if we look at the beginning of the universe as a cylindrical exhaust as a result of spherical gouging through repetition and through time and stuff like that, and that the cylinder became worn and torn. Now, I don't know what the property of the cylinder is. I don't know what the property of the spheres are that are housed within this artery-like system or this cardiovascular-like system in the universe. It just seems to me that we're overstepping, maybe even making a false analogy of a Big Bang. The primary occupation of space mechanically in the universe is the orbit. Now that's not including like the solar system, that's including the microscopic universe. And you consider how an electron travels around a proton and a neutron. The billions, trillions, gazillions, Google, whatever, the amount of motion that can be associated to the cylinder that is not substantially evident in the universe anymore, except for here on Earth with trees and arteries and veins and arms and legs and fingers and penises and ovum tunnels or canal. So part of the problem that we're struggling with is we're not looking at the evidence. We're not looking at the apparent mechanics of the universe. And if we're not looking at the apparent mechanics of the universe, it seems that we want to believe that the universe came from nothing, but maybe at one point in the universe there was a cylindrical system that was more substantial, that took up time, that took up it took a while for the spheres and their gouging on their point of contact within the walls of the cylinder universally. So maybe that's the way it was. I'm not too sure. Like I'm just venturing off, thinking about something different than what we have currently. So maybe there's something to this flying spaghetti monster. Maybe there's something to the noodly appendage of the flying spaghetti monster. Even in the picture with Adam and God touching fingers, that's two cylinders communicating. So even with religion, Christianity for example, the knowledge of good and evil came from the tree, which is cylindrical. That's just the tree. That's not including the leaves. That's not including the sphere of the fruit. So I might be going out on a limb right now. This might not make any sense. But what I'm trying to focus on is the primary motion in the universe, which is orbits, and these orbits are traveling in something that we can't see. And because we can't see these cylinders, we can't see this cylindrical influence in the universe, we tend to think that the universe came from an origin of nothingness. And I'm saying that the universe comes from an origin of cylindrical material, a more substantial cylinder in the universe, generally in a grid-like, more flat-like type of activity. So if the cylinder is the largest mechanical activity in the universe, maybe we need to start considering this perspective. So if you're just listening to this and you don't understand what I'm saying, this is more for the astrophysicists, for the cosmologists, the physicists out there. I don't have any math to back this up. It's just an observation. Like, it seems that we're in a universe that is explosive, obviously, but at the same time, there may have been an origin to the universe that is more substantial than we realize. And considering the influence that we would not know anything about the universe without cylindrical occupation of space, it seems that we're looking in the wrong area. I think the evidence shows that the largest mechanic or mechanical function in the universe is the cylinder. So I might be sound repetitive, it just seems to me that this is something we need to look at. We're doing it with super colliders, we're doing it with microscopes, we're doing it with telescopes, we're doing it with the Hubble telescope. Screws, bars, rebar, scaffolding. Like if for example, if scaffolding was square instead of tubular, it would be harder to build the scaffolding because there'd be more to calculate. But because of the point of contact with the cylinder, when we put the scaffolding on the shoe or the joint, there's more of a point to connect with and slide the scaffolding. So if we had square scaffolding, we would have to rely on a triangular point rather than a spherical point. So I see it everywhere. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I have the wrong perspective and stuff like that. Like I'm talking about this with the purpose of not starting a revolution or anything like that, or starting a problem with science. It just seems that we need to look at the evidence instead of looking at theory. And the thing is it seems evidential that the largest motion or mechanic in the universe is the cylinder or the pipe or the tube and it's reasonable to assume that we would not know anything of the universe if the cylinder didn't play an influence in the developmental process of the human body. So I think that this is part of the reason why people associate a higher power or a God to the universe or the beginning of the universe. So the body of God may be the universe currently, and part of the decay or the exhaust of the body of God or gods is the sphere gouging the cylindrical housing of the sphere. So yeah, this video is a little shorter. I stumbled through this. I'm hoping that something will happen with this. This is associated with Pastafarianism. It's associated with the primary influence on our motion, on our decay as a result of spherical gouging. We would not be anything in this universe without the cylinder. We would not know anything in this universe without the cylinder. So hopefully I've given you enough evidence to consider this as a perspective. Yeah. This video has been dedicated to the empowerment of the Red Road and keeping your home fire strong.